You're watching Oilers Nation every day with Tyler Yaremchuk. Your one-stop shop for all things Oilers.
Trent Frederic is an Oiler? I feel like someone was talking about this not that long ago. Let's get into it with the lead. Kicking off the show early. Welcome into Oilers Nation every day. A presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. The show comes to you live from the Sports Closet studio. Let's not forget that we need to give away a gift card at some point today for our friends at the Sports Closet. But Liam, that is all back of mind. The Edmonton Oilers have made a trade. If you are just tuning in and for some reason you have not seen the full deal, let me kick off the show by giving it to you. The Edmonton Oilers have acquired Trent Frederic from the Boston Bruins. We had talked about him as a guy that the team would probably have some interest in. Turns out they have a lot of interest in. They also get Max Jones in the deal. So we get Trent Frederic. We get Max Jones. What do the Edmonton Oilers give up? Well, get ready because it's quite a bit, actually, for a rental bottom six guy in Trent Frederic. The Oilers give up the second-round pick in 2025 that they got from St. Louis, their fourth-round pick in 2026, and defenseman Max Warner. This is a three-team trade, so they get Trent Frederic retained, so he's only at 25% of his cap hit. But to do so, they had to give the New Jersey Devils the rights to unsigned draft pick Shane Lachance, who is currently the captain out at Boston College. Liam, I will give you the first word on it. When you see this player, Trent Frederic, and you see the return attached to him, what do you make of this deal?
I think it's fine. I think Trent Frederic is someone the Oilers needed. They needed someone who was going to drag some guys into the battle, give them a bit more grit, the physicality. Obviously has a bit of scoring touch too, close to 20 goals in back-to-back seasons. Lower this season for sure, but I still think he can be a very impactful player on this team wherever they choose to put him. Twice retained is quite nice. His cap hit is, like $575, I think, is something around there. Right now, I would think that having Max Warner in this deal, along with a second-round pick, would be that they avoided trading another first-round pick, I think. So keeping some ammunition in the chamber there, which I don't think is such a bad thing. We talked about Max Warner yesterday and just the idea of, yeah, he's probably going to be a good player, but on the right side of Edmonton, like, you don't know exactly where he's going to fit. I know the top 4 right shot spot is open right now, but I would assume they address that with a more veteran presence than what an Emberson or even Warner could bring to the team next season. As for Shane Lachance, I am pretty confident there was almost no chance he was going to sign here anyway. Those Eastern American players don't really seem to have much interest in coming out here.
Especially when there's no incentive for them to sign. Shane Lachance can just wait till he's a UFA and then pick his spot a la Justin Schultz and every big-name free agent before them. So I don't really view Lachance as much of a loss just because, again, if he wants to be in New Jersey, he'll just go sign in New Jersey anyways.
I think an interesting layer of this is the Oilers converted a 7th-round pick and a 6th-round pick into Trent Frederic.
When you look at where you're talking about where Warner and Lachance were originally drafted.
And obviously, I think both those guys will exceed those expectations of what those draft picks would have been back at the time, but not a bad piece of business when you look at it like that. I just think, look, at the end of the day, as great as Max Warner could be, he's probably going to be a good player, like I said. The Oilers needed to do this.
He might be a full-time NHL.
He might be, yeah. And he looks like he's trending that way, but we don't know that yet. And you got to give to get. And I don't think the Oilers overpaid that crazy for what Frederic could bring. And Max Jones is just a depth option for them, I think. And actually probably a decent little lad if they can just keep him as he's essentially the Sam Carrick.
Bingo.
And that, Peter Hauser, Bruce Kurlock, known lover of Max Warner and Shane Lachance, unfortunately for Bruce.
Pour one out for Bruce.
Yeah, we're thinking of you right now, Bruce. Did tweet out that he is also a fan of Peter Hauser.
Okay. So let's call Hauser and Lachance a wash then. Undrafted or unsigned guy for unsigned guy. Cool.
Yep.
Max Jones, like you said, yeah, he's the Sam Carrick of this deal. Like, I would imagine we're going to have to see someone go on waivers before today, just looking, unless the Oilers are going to start operating in LTIR, which then I guess they don't need to. 72 goalies. Yeah, they don't need to put someone on waivers, I guess.
I would assume they do that until Friday, to be honest, and then they can make a decision from there.
Yeah. And I know some of you were pointing out in the YouTube chat right now that Chris Johnston had tweeted, and let me get the correct wording here from CJ, an interesting wrinkle to the Oilers' acquisition of Trent Frederic. At this point, there's no indication if he'll be healthy enough to play before the playoffs, so there's a chance he can remain on LTIR for the balance of the season. If that was the case, and again, CJ, excellent reporter, just the logic in my brain, if the Oilers were acquiring him going, we can take him on at full board because he's going to be LTIR till the end of the year, then I don't think the Fourth and Shane Lachance are in this deal.
I would even think maybe Max Warner isn't in this deal. I think you could have really gotten a second-round pick for Frederic.
They do medicals. That's a part of these trades. And if the Oilers got the sense that Trent Frederic is not going to be healthy enough to play in the regular season, then I think his market would have dried up very, very quickly, and they wouldn't have had to give up this much. So I would fully be expecting Trent Frederic to play games in an Edmonton Oilers sweater before Game 82 this year. Again, you don't get a guy twice retained if you only want him for the playoffs.
Sorry, the last part of this, Bob tweeted out, I forgot about this. Shane Lachance's dad works for the New Jersey Devils.
Well,
that'll do it.
Yep.
Go be with your dad, Shane.
Yeah, Shane. We're going to be winning Stanley Cups.
You're going to be drinking out of one.
So my kind of, again, instant reaction to this, and I was driving into the office as it all went down, so I had a lot of solemn alone time to really chew on the details of this trade, Liam.
That's good.
It is a hair much. If it was just a second and there was no Max Warner, and it was a second and a fourth and Shane Lachance, then I would have sat here and been like, that's a great deal for the Oilers. You got one of the better rentals that's on the market, and you only had to give up a second-round pick, a fourth, and a little something that really wasn't much to get the money to be retained down. Because now, if the Edmonton Oilers wanted to stay under the cap and need to be LTIR compliant, or however you want to phrase that, if they waive Kapanen, Frederic's only a $575,000 cap hit. You're gaining $600,000, $500,000 by swapping Kapanen for Frederic on your roster, right? So it's a very good deal cap-wise. It's a touch too much. But I also think if you're going to sit there and roast the Oilers and say, why'd you give up Max Warner in this deal, this, that, however you want to frame your negative view on this trade, that's the trade deadline. We talked about this yesterday. I mean, Trent Frederic has 8 goals on the year, primarily playing a bottom 6 role with the Bruins. He averages 13 minutes and 50 seconds time on ice per game. That's a lot more than a lot of Oilers are scoring with more minutes than that this year. So
I was going to say in the last game, the only 5 Oilers forwards got more than 13 minutes of time on ice, which just goes to show the help they actually need in those roles.
But back to my point, if you're going to roast the Oilers for including Max Warner and paying too much in your mind to get this deal done, that's trading at the trade deadline. You then can't also come out and rip the Oilers for not doing enough. At some point, the market is the market. And if you weren't willing to pay this, Boston would have just gone to the team who was willing to pay the next closest thing, right? There are a decent amount of forwards on the market this year, but it's a seller's market. There are more teams that are looking to buy than sell right now. So the idea that Boston is sitting there and going, we want Warner or this deal's not happening. If you're Edmonton, and you kind of alluded to this, you're looking at a right side of your blue line that is going to have Evan Bouchard and Ty Emberson on it for, I would assume, the next 3 to 5 seasons here. An Emberson extension should happen, and a Bouchard extension in all likelihood is going to happen at some point in closer to the summer, obviously. And I think you kind of, again, made a good point. They should address that right side of their blue line at some point here. And if you have 3 somewhat permanent right shot guys, Max Warner is an expendable asset for you. He's not a Matt Savoy. He's not anything like that. He's a B-level prospect who's, I think, shown well at the pro level. We've talked to Bruce about him a lot. But, I had that fear driving in. It was like, oh my God, is this going to be like Matt Savoy 1-for-1 for Trent Frederic? And then, I would have been pissed off at the deal. You didn't give up a first. You didn't give up your your handful of few A-level prospects who, as Sergeant Battle says, Savoy, O'Reilly, Akey. Those are the 3 guys I wouldn't have wanted to touch in this deal. They didn't. It's actually pretty close to the deal I threw out yesterday where it was the first instead of the second, and you end up getting Brandon Carlo in the deal, which maybe I would have loved that trade. I definitely would have loved that trade. So, again, it's a hair much, but that's business at the deadline, man.
Max Wanner has 2 points this season.
Well, that too.
I actually didn't realize how low his offensive numbers were. And
like, if he's the next, size isn't the same, but if he's the next William Lagesson or Vinny Desharnais is maybe a decent one. Like, if his ceiling's Vinny Desharnais, are you upset that you lost out on the next Vinny Desharnais? No.
Marcus Niemelainen. I don't know. Like, I just looked up here Max Wanner, and the first story that comes up is from Mass Live.
Yep.
Which I'm assuming is a Massachusetts newspaper or website. It says, Boston Bruins deal forward to Oilers for low prospect and picks.
There you go.
So, looking back at last season, maybe somewhat of a comparable. The Oilers got a little bit more in this deal than what the Rangers did last season, but the Rangers acquired Alex Wennberg. Obviously a different style of player, but a middle six forward, 50% retained. That cost them a second-round pick and a conditional fourth. The really is weird. A lot of the middle six forwards, I guess, weren't traded for more than the 50% retained. Like, there was no one last season aside from Adam Henrique, who was traded for 75% retained, and that obviously cost the Oilers a first-round pick. Tarasenko, Mantha, both traded for 50% retained and second-round picks, third-round picks. So, again, I don't think this deal's that crazy when you look down at comparables from years past. Anthony Duclair, Tampa Bay took on his full cap from San Jose, and it cost him a third-round pick and again, a low-level prospect. So, I think the Oilers did a good job in this, getting the cap down. Something that I know a lot of people spoke about that Holland was able to do is like he operated an LTIR for basically the entire time he was the Oilers GM and managed to get his way out on deals and making things work for the team and to get Henrik down to Frederic down to that low of a cap hit. It's interesting. Where do you think he slots into the lineup? I think that's what a lot of people are wondering.
Yeah, I wonder about him as a top six fit. I know he is a center, but he doesn't win a lot of draws. We know that Leon works very, very well with a disruptor, someone who goes and forechecks hard and can create space with physicality. Mm-hmm. I wonder about him playing with Leon Draisaitl. If you're going to keep that top line together, which, I mean, all indications are that they will, and, I mean, they've always gone back to it at some point. Maybe a conversation needs to be had about that, considering how Nuge has looked this year. But let's say that top line stays the same. I like the idea of a second line that's Frederic, Draisaitl, and Savoy. That creates a third line that I would do Arvidsson, Henrique, and Brown. And then a fourth line that would probably have Janmark centering Perry and Podkolzin. I mean, Jeff Skinner scratched tonight, and that's without Frederic in the lineup. I don't think Jeff Skinner is going to be playing a ton of hockey down the stretch and into the playoffs here. But I do, as much as Frederic is primarily a bottom six guy, I do really, really wonder about his chances of sliding up the lineup here and being a guy, just with what we know about him, being a guy that one of the Oilers' two skilled forwards really like playing with. Like, does he have a little Pat Maroon in him?
Yeah, that's maybe a good example. Frederic maybe doesn't skate. He's not a bad skater by any means. I think the comparable on NHL Edge is someone probably around Connor Brown, who's perfectly fine, can keep up to the speed of the game. Like, he's not a liability, I guess is a good way to put it. Aaron, if you just pull up the lines again for me, please. Knoblauch said something interesting today in his press conference, which was essentially that they're just going to keep the lines the same the rest of the season. He said obviously there'll be minor adjustments here and there, but he said for the most part in January they did it obviously very often, but he wants to keep that changing little in after the deadline. So just thinking about it, like, I really wonder if Matt Savoy is just on the team now. Like, his cap is obviously so friendly. Knoblauch had a lot of praise for him. I think a lot of people have had high praise for him. And I like what Louis said yesterday of the reason he wasn't in the team for those 2 games is because how bad everything was. Yeah. And they kind of didn't want him to be around that, which makes sense. I wonder if they put him on the third line next to Henrique, maybe bump Brown down, and then have Janmark or Podkolzin on one of those wings just next to Henrique and Frederic, just to have a little bit more speed. Like, that Frederic Podkolzin duo. I know they're both left shots. That could be kind of a nice little thing, but also don't. Yeah, like a little physical. People are asking how serious the Frederic injury is. I think he was listed as week to week when he officially was called out out of the lineup. But I know there was a tweet today about from CJ saying he's going to go on LTIR maybe for the rest of the season, but. It doesn't make a lot of sense to us considering the Oilers retained him 75%.
This from Puckpedia on the idea of Frederic potentially not playing. If Frederic is going to be out for the year, the retention was potentially not needed because acquiring him, then putting him on LTIR is a net zero cap impact for the Oilers because, and I'll add this, they are already in LTIR with Evander Kane. Puckpedia Hart adds, this suggests there's at least a chance he's back, or they also plan to trade Kane and not be an LTIR team, which I do think is, again, a relatively interesting wrinkle to all of this. It could mean a Kane trade. It could also mean a potential Victor Arvidsson trade. It could mean a whole bunch of things, but what I do like, again, about this trade, I am still of the belief Evander Kane is not going to play a regular season game for the Edmonton Oilers this year. And whether he is traded or stays on LTIR, they have $4.55 million to spend. I'm going to go look at the other deadline target I've talked about, everybody. Guess how much Jamie Alexiak is?
4.6.
4.6. They basically have exactly enough money to acquire whatever defenseman on the market that they want to. And I think that's a big part of this. And again, they could even get more expensive than that if they wanted to, because that's $4.55 million or $5.8 million with 14 forwards on the roster. You subtract Kasperi Kapanen from that, it's $1 million. You potentially subtract whether it's Savoy going back down because he doesn't need waivers, or you do something else, and it's, I don't know who else could go on waivers. It can't be Skinner. He has a no movement clause. Maybe it's, I guess when you acquire a defenseman, it'll be a defenseman going out. So let's say it's Kapanen and Stetcher off the books. The Oilers could actually acquire a defenseman worth $5.5, $6.2, $6.3 million, or you include John Klingberg in the deal, and it's $1.75 million. And now all of a sudden, you can acquire a defenseman that's making close to $7.2 million against the cap. They went out and got a guy that makes them better. I think whatever your view is on Trent Frederic, he makes them better. And I see someone says his ceiling is Fogle. Okay, if you just got a guy whose ceiling is Fogle and he hits that ceiling, you're going to be pretty happy with this trade.
They miss Fogle.
They do miss a Fogle type. So if you're going to go out and get someone who, call his ceiling whatever you want his ceiling is, you give up a handful of assets, but nothing that is considered an A+ or an A piece, and no first-round picks, and you did it while improving your cap situation. Again, if there was no Warner in this deal, I'm a lot happier. But I'm also not going to sit here and get all upset because the Oilers potentially lost out on a defensive defenseman who is still not a lock to play NHL or to be a full-time NHLer. I think he'll play NHL games eventually, but is he William Lagesson? We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. It's hard to say. I think another question about this too, obviously Frederic is a UFA at the end of the year.
Yeah.
From Missouri, I think he's St. Louis, Missouri. He's from. Like, what would you pay him if it comes down to that? Like, do you think, have you heard anything about, like, possibility? I know it's early, but just, like, was there anything about, like, him re-signing with a team once he got traded there before he got traded? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Nothing like that, but I would look and say Jake Evans just re-signed 4 years, $2.85 million with Montreal.
Yeah.
I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's a little connection there. The Oilers had interest in Jake Evans.
I'm glad they didn't get him. I feel like he was like slightly overrated and more valued for his cap hit than the actual player.
But if you were to sign Trent Frederic to a 4-year, $2.85 million deal, I want to see him in the lineup before I say whether or not I'd do that, I guess, is kind of my point. At first glance, it feels a tinge high, but again, cap's going up. Duran is in with a super chat. Super chats all go towards our friends over at the Ben Stelter Foundation. He drops in and says, I'm not mad considering what we had to work with. Pretty decent work, and we have lots of depth if our guys start getting hurt. LFG Cup year. Let's get into a few more comments in the YouTube chat, which is brought to you by Odd Company Brewing and the all-new Nation Beer Everyday Lager, a crisp, clean lager crafted not just for game day, but for every day. Find them one of their 2 spots in Edmonton, Ritchie location or downtown, or head to liquorconnect.com. Find a liquor store near you that carries it. I want to get to some of your takes about the Trent Frederic deal. Someone asked, can we flip him? That would make no sense. Although it would be very funny now that he's at $500K if some team was like, we'll actually give you a first. And then it was like, oh, shit.
Ooh, damn.
Actually.
We need to replace our right shot defenseman.
we need to get some prospects in our system. No, I really don't like the -14. I wouldn't worry about his plus-minus if I'm being honest.
Especially on a team like the Bruins where everyone was pretty much a minus.
Max is a solid depth winger too, so I think this is a fair trade for everyone involved. I'm not a big Max Jones guy. I think I maybe was a bit more of a Max Jones fan a few years ago when
I think he went on waivers this year.
Yeah, he's been on waivers before, at least I know that, but he spent a lot of time with the Anaheim Ducks, and his best season, even if you were to prorate it to an 82-game pace, would have been, he scored 7 goals in 46 games back in 2020, 2021. So, again, he is a centerman, he can play center, but he's listed as a left winger. He's been a center in the past, but he's a left shot, so, like, I don't see a ton here with Max Jones. I haven't looked into the contract situations. Like, what was?
He has $1 million for the next year too.
$1 million even?
Yeah.
I was thinking more of did Boston have to get rid of a contract, but they didn't.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so Max Jones has $1 million on his deal, 1 more year. Puckpedia has him as starting down in Bakersfield.
I believe he was playing in Providence where he had 13 goals in 38 games.
So, whatever, a little bit of a project, I guess. That's
just
fine.
Depth.
Yeah, just depth.
Which is good.
Let's keep getting to everybody's comments. Someone says, the title makes it sound like we're acquiring Devan Dubnyk. We should maybe change that. Do like, the Oilers acquire Trent Frederic and Devan Dubnyk joins the show.
Hey.
Oh.
All good. You all know what it means.
Yeah, I think you all know that Devan Dubnyk is not being traded to the Edmonton Oilers. He's going to join a little bit earlier than expected, by the way, in maybe about 10, 13 minutes. So, AB, just give me a heads up when he pops in. Rusty, who's getting moved? Kane, ? Is he gone? Well, it does create a pretty interesting scenario because, one, we don't know Kane and the LTIR thing. We kind of hinted it a couple of minutes ago. My belief is still going to continue being that Evander Kane is not going to play here until the playoffs.
I think so, too.
I think that's the most likely outcome in all this, but the idea that he could get traded is not totally far-fetched. And if you want to flash up the forward lines a little bit, so let's say the Oilers, say Matt Savoy sticks, which I don't think is that much of a guarantee. I think come playoff time, they might be, just knowing what we know about the Oilers, they might be a little bit nervous to play him as a full-time NHLer. I mean, they didn't want to play Dylan Holloway in the playoffs all that much.
That is true.
So,
although he did lead them in 5-on-5 goals, ironically.
Yep.
Outside of Drysdale and McDavid.
That was dumb in hindsight. So then now let's say they learned their lesson.
Okay, let's assume they also don't do that because they never do. Anyways, go on.
Top 6. Let's say the top line stays the same. Let's say the second line. Are we doing Matt Savoy in or out?
I'm in. I really do
I'm
think
in
he's
too.
in.
Draisaitl, Frederic, and Savoy. Your third line could be night 1 of the playoffs, Henrik, Arvidsson, Kane. Your fourth line would then be Janmark Janmark's maybe a center now. So then you go Janmark with...
What if Frederic's your center?
With who?
Frederic could be your fourth line center.
He could be your fourth line center. That's a bit much to give up for a guy if you're just going to play him as your 4C, though, I think.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting the way they do that, but I could see him. It just seems silly for them to be like, hey, we're going to put our left winger as center when we just acquired one, but also I don't think it's out of the question. There's a lot. The good thing about him is he's very flexible. You can put him in a couple of roles, and I think he could do a job. Anyway,
I think for what you want out of a 4C, again, you go Nuge, McDavid, Hyman, Frederic, Draisaitl, Savoy. Your third line is Henrik centering, Arvidsson, and who else? Oh, Evander Kane. And then your fourth line is Janmark centering, Corey Perry, and Connor Brown or Vasily Podkolzin. That's a pretty deep forward group. I mean, they need guys to start playing better for it to be and actually live up to that. You know, they're a good forward group kind of thing. But again, I don't mind the look of that.
Yeah, I would agree. Couple of questions in the chat as well right now about Frederic. Is Frederic a fighter? Yeah, he fought Corey Perry this season.
He did fight
Corey Perry. Was very unwilling combatant, but he eventually fought him. Acom asked us, Trent Frederic penalty kill. He said Jake Evans does, which is why we wanted him. No. I don't think Frederic does penalty kill, but I don't think he would take someone's spot in the lineup that would penalty kill. So I don't think it's like a You know what I mean? You're not really changing too much of the dynamic of the forward group there, but I think that would be fine. Chad said, this kid has sandpaper. Yeah, it's definitely something that Trent Frederic brings to the lineup, and the Oilers needed that so bad. I know some people were maybe a little unsure about his analytics, I guess. It seems to mix, because NHL Sid just put out a tweet, and I'll read that in a second, just saying like how he liked him on some stats, and other people didn't like him for some things, but I just think like sometimes that can't matter. Like the Oilers needed someone like Frederic, someone like the lack of physicality was alarming. I know Greg had just wrote an article at Oilersnation yesterday or today, whenever it came out. It's out now. You can go find it. But just basically saying, like, all these guys who, and we talked about on ONR too, like, usually they're not out there killing people by any means. But, like, Connor Brown just isn't hitting. Like, guys like that just aren't throwing the body. And they needed someone who's, like, going to push them over the line and get a few hits a game and change the dynamic of this team. And I actually think he's going to be such a valuable player to them. It's a shame he's not going to be available right away, but hopefully after that trip of New York next week, they can really change things for them. I guess another thing too, we do have the What Chaos guys coming on today who live in Boston.
Yeah, we have
so
DJs.
They're gonna give us a good idea of what Frederic is all about, and maybe a little bit of an indication too of what Max Jones can bring to the lineup, which probably isn't going to be too much, but better than nothing, I guess.
Yeah. I do think it's funny, some of the criticism from people on this deal, and it's the same people who, again, I tweeted out Trent Frederic, Jamie Alexiak as two, call them dream deadline targets, if, that was with my expectations in mind, and I got roasted for it, right? People were like, if that's all the Oilers do, it's a massive, massive mistake. And now we're seeing people go, well, the Oilers gave up way too much for this guy. And it's like, okay, if this is how much Trent Frederic costs and you think he's a bad player, how much do you think a good player costs, right?
Yeah,
deadline deals are meant to be overpays. That's how this shit works.
Yeah.
That's why every single year we have the conversation of, boy, the team that wins the deadline rarely ever goes on and wins the Stanley Cup, because it's about being built well from the jump. And you can argue about whether or not the Oilers are built well from the jump, but people go point to Dwayne Rolson in 2006. Look how that worked out. Why don't you go do that? Okay, remember when St. Louis went and paid a boatload of assets for Ryan Miller? Did it work?
Nuh-uh.
First round exit, I believe. Ryan Miller wasn't all that good.
He even said too, I was listening to Kevin Woodley. If you ever heard his stuff, he's
great.
He's
been on our show
unbelievable.
before,
Yes, he has. He said it's so difficult for goalies to adjust. Like, if you remember, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, but Rolson kind of struggled, right, up until the playoffs. Like, he wasn't great by any means. And
he was not good at all going into the playoffs.
And then found a rhythm, and it does take a little bit of time.
He got hot for 2 months.
Yeah, and that's what they need. I was looking here. So someone, after I said he's not much of a penalty killer, someone put it back in. I can't remember who it was now.
He only kills about 30 seconds a game. He doesn't kill a lot, but his penalty killing metrics are very good.
He's killed 25 minutes this season.
In 55 games.
Yeah.
That's pretty low.
Pretty low. I would imagine he's not on it every single night then, if that's the case. It was Owen Mason who said that. But just to go back, I referenced the NHL Sid quote tweet before. He said, I like Frederic, solid two-way, bottom six forward that can forecheck, kill penalties, and even produce at a decent rate. He put out a graphic. Don't know what it means. Blue's typically good. Red is bad. Penalties obviously down at 25%. That is a red color.
Takes a lot of penalties.
Takes a lot of penalties, but good finisher. He said his competition is quite low, but it's obviously that's fine.
Yep.
5 and 5 minutes per hour in the past 3 seasons. Frederic is 1.77. Nugent Hopkins is comparable. Is 1.71.
And he plays with McDavid.
And he plays with McDavid. Adam Henrique, who's going to be in a similar role minutes-wise to what Frederic will be, is 1.68. Frederic, good ad. I'm very happy with this addition. He's heart and soul guy.
Someone says he absolutely kills penalties. Yes, he absolutely kills penalties sometimes.
He's in the box a lot.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point too. He might not kill that many penalties because he is often the one whose penalty needs to be killed off.
Yeah,
but that'll happen.
So on the ice this season for 3 goals against on the penalty kill. That's good. Last season was on the 50 minutes in 82 games, so probably not too far off the pace of that. 6 goals against. So, yeah, he can penalty kill. I'm sure they'll try and find a role for him here to make the value better.
Yeah.
How would you grade it?
Slap a grade on it? I can't go A.
That's fine.
B. Just a B.
Okay.
Again, it's probably a B plus or even an A minus if Max Wanner. It's a B plus if Wanner's not involved, but I'm not going to sit here and lose too much sleep over Max Wanner. If I'm being totally honest with you, I don't think this is Kesselring 2.0. So I'm going B. It's a B.
So before I give my grade, can we just quickly go through these prospects that the Oilers have had in their system that they have let go of? So just on recent memory, Lagesson obviously won a little bit different because he was slightly older. Didn't pan out.
Didn't work.
Michael Kesselring, 100% miss.
That
Should
one
have
sucks.
probably kept him. Really good player. Wish he was still here. Niemelainen, obviously a little bit older. Didn't pan out. Raphael Lavoie. He's currently on Vegas. I don't think
Probably
he
in
has
Europe
a
next
point
year.
this season.
Yep.
Borgo. I don't know.
Isn't working.
I'm not too bothered about Max Wanner, to be honest. I'll give it a B as well. My downgrade is going to just be because I would be B plus 2. But the fact he can't play right away kind of sucks. And I still am happy they got him, but I'm just going to give it a B. I think that's fine. Samorikov, that's a great one, Loomis.
Oh.
Yeah, that is
and they got roasted for that at the time, too.
Yeah, for Klim Shady. You got a good year out of Klim Shady. And what did they trade? Future considerations. There you go. Let us know if you can remember an Oilers prospect they let go of too soon, and then he didn't pan out.
There's the one in...
Oh, Stephen Ellis. He knows. Definitely don't be too sad about Warner.
There you go. I trust Steven.
Thank you, Stephen.
More than I trust you.
That's fair. I would too.
Speaking of Borgo, what happened to him? He just kind of stinks now.
Yeah,
well, not now. He stunk the whole time.
How's our old friend doing? His line mate, by the way, in junior, Maverick Borgo. Good player. No,
Maverick Bork.
Sorry.
Maverick Bork, yeah. They're not brothers.
5 goals this season, 41 games for Borgo. Is he a bust? Maybe.
Yeah, based Ivy, let's get the narrative in our head that LaChance was probably not going to sign here. I don't think he was.
I'm pretty confident he wasn't. The Oilers have
They traded him to an organization where his dad works. He's an East Coast guy. His dad works for the New Jersey Devils, and the New Jersey Devils stepped up and said, we will take him.
I could have sworn Johnny was going to put in a good word for us last week.
Yeah, apparently he did, but wasn't enough.
That's funny. What did Steven say? Hauser is full of energy. He's a big 6'4" and isn't afraid to use that size. He's smart, but slow. Not ideal. Long shot to make the NHL, but his Czech league deal is over this spring. AHL deal next season?
Sure.
Question mark. Let's hope so. Who cares? They need this. No, who cares? You Steven. Thank you for coming in. But
who cares?
I just mean in general, who cares about these prospects? It kind of just is what it is.
Yeah.
I want Trent Frederic. The Oilers got the best player in this deal, and that is what matters.
If the Oilers signed Trent Frederic to the Jake Evans deal, 4 years by 2.85.
Sweet.
Cool.
Even if it's 3.5, I wouldn't even be. The cap's going up. He was getting paid 2.3, so I wonder if he's gonna want a bit more
4
money.
by 3 or something. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, 3.
We got to see how he fits in.
Maybe he sucks. Maybe he's not a fit here. Hopefully he doesn't suck. But I just mean maybe he just doesn't work out the way they wanted it to for him, and then they don't sign him, and that's fine. Just looking back, college players the Oilers have. Bauer, Berry, anyone?
I don't know who that is. You might have made it up.
7th round pick. Not even playing college yet.
From Warren Buffett, do we have the assets to make an Alexiak trade work?
Warren Buffett.
Yeah. Good name. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. So let me give you kind of a little reset on what the Oilers have now. In this draft, 2025 draft, they don't have a first. They now don't have a second. Mm-hmm. They have a 3rd rounder, no 4th, no 5th, a 6th, and a 7th. So I doubt they're trading that 3rd.
Isn't the 3rd St. Louis's pick?
Correct.
So it's going to be slightly higher. Let's assume it's a non-playoff pick, I guess you can call it.
Next year, they have their 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and then they have a 5th, 6th, and 7th. So no 4th. They traded it today. The next year, 2027, they have a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. No 4th traded, but a 5th, 6th, and 7th as well. So if you were going to get Alexiak, it might cost you your 1st-round pick in 2026, but I also think it might only cost you. He might be a similar return to Frederic, where it's like a 2nd and maybe like a 3rd to make the money work. But again,
let's have a look.
2nd, 3rd, and maybe a prospect.
Yeah, I would think so. Again, just going back and looking at a bit of the history. Nikita Zadorov last year traded probably one of the first impactful trades of the season.
Yep.
fourth and a sixth to Vancouver. They took all his cap at $3.7 million.
And the Oilers, again, assuming Kane is out till the end of the season, the Oilers could take Jamie Alexiak's cap hit.
Chris Tanev, obviously a big one.
What did he go for?
So he was 75% retained, with New Jersey actually being the other team along with Calgary. Second round pick, conditional third, and a low end prospect. They also had to trade a fourth to New Jersey.
Worth noting, both these guys were pure rentals. Jamie Alexiak, one more year on his deal at $4.6 million.
So maybe that increases the fourth.
But he's also not as good as Tanev and Zadorov.
Probably Zadorov is similar.
He doesn't have the upside of Zadorov.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay. Other guys, top four defense, Jacob Chikrin, but he had a couple of years left. Philip Hronek, probably not as good, right? But he was a first and a second, Hronek, and they took all his cap at 4.4
And Philip Hronek was a pending RFA, and Philip Hronek's a legit top pairing defenseman. So I don't think so. He was a first and a second.
First and a second and he had a year, maybe even two left on his deal.
Yeah, so I think Alexiak might cost you a second, and then maybe if they keep some money, you got to throw in something.
Here's a perfect one.
Okay.
Jake McCabe.
What do you go for?
He was 50% retained.
So down from $4 to $2 million that year.
$4 to $2 million, and I think he still had 2 years left on his deal. If I'm
he
not
did
mistaken.
have 2 more years. So
they gave a conditional first and a second. They obviously got Sam Lafferty in that deal as well, so maybe that changes things. And then just basically 2 AHL level players to Chicago.
So that was, they got Lafferty too, and it was a first and a second.
And they also got 2 fifth-round picks in there.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing.
So a second for Alexiak's probably what we're looking at then, now that I'm doing this exercise with you.
Second, third, maybe. It's going to be, well, it just depends on how the market is. Mm-hmm. Seattle's GM today, Ron Francis, I think his name is, right?
It is.
Not about Alexiak, but did say they'd be willing to trade Brandon Tanev for 50% retained. I know he's obviously not a target the Oilers want, but I think it just gives a good idea of, like, they're clearly open to taking some salary on here to get a couple extra picks.
Seattle has not, they do not have a retained salary on the book, so they can retain 3 players' salaries. The idea that you would get Alexiak knocked down is not crazy.
We could make history here. He could be the first Seattle Kraken to have his contract retained. Don't fact check me. That's actually totally wrong, because we already spoke about Wenberg getting traded.
Yep.
No, he was on Columbus. Wenberg was on Columbus.
All right.
That fact check me.
We're back.
I'm pretty sure that's right.
We're back.
Yep.
All right. Should we continue along with the show?
back.
First off, the Trent Frederic deal obviously dominates the first 40 minutes of today's show, but it is a Sherwood Ford Giant game day. One of the big stories going into tonight is that Calvin Pickard is getting the start once again. So let's continue that conversation and talk a little bit more about the current state of the Oilers over on the Star Mechanical guest line. It's Edmonton's #1 plumbing and heating company. You can find out more about them by visiting them online at starmechanical.ca. Former Oiler, former NHL goaltender Devan Dubnyk joins us for his weekly appearance on the show. The Oilers made a trade today. Do you know anything about Trent Frederic?
Yes, I do know about Trent Frederic. I'm just catching up on trade here, like I told you guys. But good addition, big body, and he's going to add some body, some hits to the Oilers lineup. I believe they're down on that this year, so that's going to be a good addition that way. And he's got some ability to add some points as well. So I think it's a good pickup for Edmonton for a pretty low price.
Yeah, I actually, and we talked about this before you popped on, but we know Connor and Leon kind of like to play with guys who have a little bit of jam. You can go back to Patty Maroon's 28-goal season or whatever it was. You can look at the guys who historically have fit in well with Leon Draisaitl, and I know Frederic typically profiles as a third, fourth line guy, but I actually think he might get a look up the lineup, and I think that big body with the scoring touch, that might work well with the 29 or 97.
Yeah, I think if I could skate and hit some guys, I might have a few points with 29 and 97 too. So this is a guy who was able to do that even without those guys. So definitely a possibility of a guy stepping in like that and bringing a different element to that line or lines, and you can see his point total jump.
All right, let's talk a little bit of goaltending. Obviously, that continues to be a big conversation here in the city. Calvin Pickard has put up some pretty decent numbers this year. He has a .901 save percentage. League average on the year is .901 this year in the NHL, which is also crazy that it's that low. But anyways, totally different conversation. But still, even though he's put up decent numbers, let's call it, there's a portion of the fan base who just doesn't pass the eye test for him. He doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. How would you describe Calvin Pickard's style of play, and do you think he can have some amount of long-term success if the Oilers keep rolling him out for the next little bit?
Yeah, I get it. He's a little old school. He doesn't fit that mold of what people are used to seeing goalies play. The way he holds his hands is a little different. He's raw in his movements, pushing around, but he's a puck stopper, and it doesn't look necessarily as pretty or perfect as other guys, but he's been around a long time and he gets in front of the puck in different ways. So as far as long term, I think the biggest thing is consistency. When you do play a little bit of that style, can be fleeting or tough to come by. But he's filled a great role as a backup, and sometimes your job as a backup is to step up and maybe play a couple, 2-3 games in a row to get things back on track when they're sliding. And he was able to step in and get that big win, get them off of the losing streak, and kind of relieve that pressure a little bit, which is a big part of his job. And he's getting rewarded with another start here.
Obviously, that Saturday game was huge for Edmonton. They needed to win that one so bad, and I think for Pickard to step in there, and I think he made like 36 saves. It was the only other time for the Oilers he'd been played back-to-back games was in the playoffs against Vancouver. Those, 4 and 5, and he played so well in both those games. Can you just talk about like how difficult of a job that must have been for him to go into that situation? Like your back is against the wall, and all of a sudden you're asking him to do all this stuff, and he performs at such a good level. Like, at the end of the game, they literally let Sebastian Aho clean through on him, and he was able to stop it. And then you see his celebration at the end. He just seems like he was just so dialed in.
Yeah, and he got to put an exclamation point on doing that, on getting them out of the losing streak. It wasn't just a solid game. He saved the game at the end with that breakaway stop. So that was exciting for him. I think the biggest mindset coming into situations like that is to not try to change anything, not go in there and think that he's got to be anything other than Calvin Pickard. And a backup goalie's job is to come in there and bring energy. Battle as hard as you can, show the guys that you're back there going to war for them, and not think that all of a sudden you have a starter's job or things have changed. At the end of the day, you're stopping the puck the same way. So mindset wise, you just have to keep doing that same thing. Bring that energy, bring the battle. Let the guys see that you're there to work, and not think that you have to go and change your approach or really change anything. Just keep doing what you've been bringing to the team.
It's deadline week, so obviously trade talk is prevalent right now. There's been chatter, could the Blues make Jordan Binnington available? What's going on with John Gibson and the Anaheim Ducks? There's been some other fringe options, like we talked yesterday. Chicago's apparently willing to just get rid of Peter Mrazek to anyone who can take on his $4.25 million cap hit. My take on the goaltending has been, at least for the last month or so, that unless it is transformative and it legitimately changes the Oilers' Stanley Cup chances and you go, wow, that is a bona fide number one who can carry you to a Stanley Cup, I haven't felt like a deal is worth it. Out of those names I listed, whether it's Binnington or Gibson, is there someone out there that you think is a significant enough upgrade for the Oilers that you'd like to see them go make a move? Or do you think they should just trust Pickard and Skinner again?
Well, I agree with you on the fact that it needs to be big. You don't want to just go get somebody just to get somebody, because one, Pickard's obviously a well-liked guy, and he's been doing his job. So you go bring in somebody else, and where does he go in the dressing room? That might not always be a good scenario. But if you have an opportunity, if a guy like Binnington's available, this is a guy that's won and just recently won 4 Nations, but obviously knows how to perform in high pressure situations. That's an intriguing one. Gibson's intriguing too, just because he's been in Anaheim for so long, and he's a great goalie and has a lot of skill. But you're bringing in a guy that hasn't played playoffs in a very long time and doesn't have that same pedigree as a Binnington. So I don't like that one as much. And I guess the other side of it too, that you have to be careful with trades, goalies especially, but in general, is bringing a guy in and forcing him into a situation. I think anybody you bring in, Stuart Skinner's 1 win away from the Stanley Cup last year. And I understand, there's always going to be questions until you get it done. But if you bring a guy in, even if it's a Binnington, and he comes in and he plays okay, I don't think you just take the job away from Skinner. I think you allow them to play and then decide who you want to go with. but don't force a guy in just because you made a trade for him. We had a trade. We were top in the league. I can't remember what year it was. I want to say 2017 maybe, and felt like the GM felt like he had to make a deal because we were top of the league, and we went and got Marty Hansel, who was the best guy available at the time, and he came in and he didn't really fit with how we were playing. We were a super fast team. Obviously, that wasn't really his game. And he kind of got forced into positions because we traded a first round pick for him. They put him on the top two lines. They put him on the top penalty kill just because. And so they kind of forced him in because of the trade rather than just because he traded a first round pick doesn't mean he can't contribute on the fourth line. He doesn't have to be top penalty kill unit when he didn't fit our group. And so going back to the goaltending, if you go get somebody, the job's not automatically theirs. It can be depth. It can be an opportunity for them to take it, but you don't want to just fully take that away from Stuart Skinner when he was, again, two goals away from winning a Stanley Cup last year.
Man, I totally forgot about that. That year with the Wild, you guys were so good, but that Hansel deal was massive. It was a first, it was a second, it was another fourth in that deal, and then he came in and scored 4 goals in 20 games. Like, you're right, he just didn't do a lot, but we've been talking about that quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, the line of thinking that, like, everyone thinks that just because you're good and you're a contender, you have to do something massive, and it's just not always the case. Florida last year got Vlad Tarasenko for a mid-round pick, and that was all they did, and they went on to win the Stanley Cup. So I don't think the Oilers need to be going out there and necessarily just making trades for the sake of making trades, but we just talked about the goaltending. We obviously now know that they've added to the forward group. Is there anything else you'd like to see the Oilers do or think that they should be looking at?
I think a veteran defenseman, again, doesn't have to be a huge splash, just depth-wise, having a guy that's calm, that's been around, that can be a presence out there if things start to go off the rails a little bit. I think that's just a really important piece to have as a leader back there that's going to keep things calm when things get crazy, because it doesn't take much for things to get crazy in Edmonton and people start to panic and guys have to deal with that. So I think having a presence back there on the back end, regardless of playing time, just being there, I think would be a big addition.
Just to go outside of Edmonton a little bit, Spencer Knight obviously traded earlier this week to Chicago. Came in yesterday, what he's up, 42 or 43 or something crazy like that.
It's insane.
Can you just talk about maybe what you see in his game and what he could become for Chicago? Obviously, he's been so sheltered in Florida because of Bobrovsky, and it seems like it's a really, really good opportunity for him to take the next step in his career.
Yeah, it's huge for him. It's one of those unique situations with goaltending. You got a first-round pick who is very hyped up and then ends up behind a guy on an 8-year huge deal and now won a Stanley Cup, and there's just nowhere to go and there's no playing time. It doesn't take away from how good Spencer Knight is. So this is kind of the perfect scenario for both teams. I thought it was a great trade for both teams because Florida gets to add, and they lose obviously a top prospect, but not a guy that they need right now. And they're in a situation where they can still continue to win. Chicago gets Spencer Knight, a goalie who they can potentially build their team around, and they're in rebuilding and they need to add pieces. They need to start taking a step, and they haven't had that in net. Now they have a guy who's young, has shown that he's a phenomenal goaltender and comes in, plays a great first game, but this is a guy that they can start building around and potentially have a franchise goaltender. And so he's got all the tools to do it. And it's an exciting chance for him to be thrown in and play every game and learn. So I think it was a great trade both ways. And I'm excited for Spencer to get in there and start playing game after game. And that's really the way you learn and build, is just playing every night and kind of figuring it out as you go. And fortunately for him, Chicago's in a situation where they're going to be allowed to let him learn. Just get him in there night after night after night and let him go over some bumps and figure things out as he goes and not have to worry about missing the playoffs by a couple points if he has a little lull. Let him work through it.
I guess last one for me, going outside of Edmonton, we just talked, Florida made a big splash. They go get Seth Jones. The Oilers have made one of, I think, what'll be one of their bigger deals. They might not make a bigger one than getting Trent Frederic. Who else are you looking at, though, around the league as a team that you're like, they're not complete. Like, they do need help before Friday's deadline.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that are tricky because you look at Toronto, you look at Winnipeg, Washington, right? These teams, they've all had incredible regular seasons and they're poised to contend. But it's so tricky because what is it do you add? I just went over what happened to us in Minnesota, and it's like you want to add, but you don't want to give away the future or add a guy that. I mean, these are great teams. They're top of the league. I mean, they obviously have a great thing going. So you want to add without subtracting or disrupting what's going on. It's easier. I guess easier is probably not the right word. But if you're trying to make the playoffs or trying to get one of those top 3 division seeds, it's easier to take a bit more of a risk. But when you're these teams where you're at the top, you don't want to disrupt what's going on because obviously you're already there as a contender. But those are probably 3 teams that I keep an eye on just to see how they go about it. I'm not saying whether they'll do something big or not, but I'm curious to see kind of how they go about it and what they look to add.
Devan, as always, appreciate your time, man. Thanks for doing this, and we'll chat next week when all the dust is kind of settled, I guess, around the deadline.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Devan Dubnyk, weekly guest on the show, former Oiler, former NHL goaltender. Really good. I loved his take on Spencer Knight.
Yeah, me too. I liked what he said too. I think it's just a really good deal for both sides. At the end of the day, I think Seth Jones still has tons to give. He's a good player, and to be in the top 4,
he needs to be on a winner.
Yeah, I think it's been a long time. Probably like Nashville, they played pretty well there. But Spencer Knight, quality player. Just needed the opportunity. I kind of forgot that they drafted him and also signed Bobrovsky in the same month. Really doesn't make a lot of sense.
Same week.
This is the same week.
It was the same week.
Awesome.
They used the 13th overall pick to select a goalie and then went,
That was a crazy draft, too, if I'm not mistaken.
And there's a story about them overpaying Bobrovsky like $3 or $4 million more than any other team was offering.
Oh, this is not a good look for them. Cam York, 14th overall for Florida. Yeah. 15th? Cole Caulfield.
Oh, yeah.
Thomas Harley, 18th. God, this is a good draft. Michael.
Who'd the Oilers take?
Philip Broberg.
Hey, you just turned that second-round pick into Trent Frederic, though. Let's go.
Trade tree continues.
Let's go. J-Rock is in. If the Blues trade Binner Parayko this year, I'll fly to Edmonton and let fans kick me in the groin on the concourse during the first intermission. It's not happening. J-Rock is a Blues fan. He watches Daily Faceoff live.
Oh, thank you for watching our show, J-Rock.
Yep. Thanks, J-Rock. A bunch of new people, I think.
Donating, too. That's big.
Hey, J-Rock, if you don't know, all the proceeds from our Super Chat go to the Ben Stelter Foundation, so shout out to the Ben Stelter Foundation. Here is from Daily Faceoff. John Goyens and Frank Saravalli did like a joint scouting report article on Frederic. Here's what they had to say about Trent Frederic. I'm then going to turn this into our Sherwood Ford Giant question for the day. Frederic is best suited as a third-line center, but could be bumped down to the fourth line or elevated to the second line as a winger in a pinch. Bruins don't use him much on either special teams. The scouting report. The best quality in Frederic's arsenal and the calling card that will make teams pick up the phone over the next 10 days is that he is a true pain in the ass to play against. His physicality is always on display. Frederic has racked up 152 hits this season, which is 20th amongst all forwards. He was 22nd the year before. In the offensive zone, and I like this.
Okay.
Frederic willfully plants himself in front of the net and uses his 6'3" frame to take away the goalie's eyes and utilizes his better-than-average puck deflection skills. This has resulted in 6 goals from the high-danger area. That is in the 67th percentile of the entire NHL. His shooting percentage from that high-danger area is in the 77th percentile. The Edmonton Oilers this season have been a team that, for whatever reason, you can call it a coaching mistake or whatever, they have just funneled pucks from the blue line this year. The D-men love shooting the puck. Okay, if that's the way your team plays, get a 6'3" guy who can deflect pucks really well and stack them in front of the net. The Oilers have a going to the net problem.
Oh, big time. Big time. That's something that Arvidsson was supposed to bring. Perry obviously brings it for sure pretty much every night, but they need more guys like that. And you look over the weekend, like their 2 goals against Carolina, both of them going to the net. You got to get down and dirty sometimes. And Frederic, again, like said this a little bit earlier, but he's going to bring guys into the battle. Like, he's just the type of player he is. He's a lot of spirit, a lot of heart. And I know those numbers there, like only 8 goals in 57 games, along with 7 assists. Like, they don't jump off the page as like exciting, but I think when Oilers fans actually see him play, it's someone they're really going to appreciate in their lineup.
Kyle is in. What if our third line come playoffs is Kane, Frederic, and Podkolzin? We just beat teams down, move Henrique, Janmark, and Brown to the fourth line. I don't hate that idea, but it brings me, Liam, to a Sherwood Ford Giant question. Brought to you by Sherwood Ford the Giant. It is a Sherwood Ford Giant game day. After all, hockey fans helping hockey fans and offering up the Nation Valet service, which gets you an exclusive Nation gear package, swag package, every time you use it, and you get entered in to the monthly draw. Book online, sherwoodford.ca, and make sure you add in Oilersnation Valet to the pickup comments. Sherwoodford.ca, Nation citizens, your hockey destination is Sherwood Ford. At the end, when the season is over, and the Oilers have lifted a Stanley Cup, we hope, Liam, will Trent Frederic play more time with McDavid and Draisaitl or without McDavid or Draisaitl?
Without is my answer.
Really? I'm going to say with. I think he finds a spot in this top 6. I think his nose for the net and his physicality will be appreciated by the Oilers' big guns, and I think we see him more in the top 6 than we do in the bottom 6.
I think your logic is correct. I just think they want to spread it out a bit more, and I think Frederic is just better suit for the bottom 6. I could see them just putting him next to Henrique and having a bit more offense there, I guess you could say, and just a bit more grit. So, no, I don't think so. I think they really want to keep that top line the same. Obviously, the second line is the question mark, but also, too, what did someone say yesterday? Like, Arvidsson's no trade clause also protects him from leaving the top 6. I would agree. I think he just seems to be a lock up there right now.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's continue along. DJ Bean's going to swing by in a couple of minutes, but let's get to a lineup report, and we'll make it for our friends at Service Credit Union. The Service Big Share Contest is back and better than ever, and you can win $1 million just by saving money. Anyone can enter by becoming a member and saving with Service. Every $500 saved gets you 5 entries into the Service Big Share Contest. The contest ends April 30th, 2025. Skill test required. For rules, go to service.ca/win. Edmonton looking for a second straight win tonight. Here's what they're doing with their forward group. McDavid, Nuge, Hyman is the top line. Draisaitl, Arvidsson, and Savoy is the second line. So, Liam, we will see Matt Savoy on home ice for the first time tonight. Really intrigued to see how they use him with last change.
It's also, Gregor put this out, so it's college night tonight for this game too. And a bunch of Savoy's friends go to the U of A, and months ago they bought tickets for this game. Coincidentally, this is his first game in Edmonton, which is kind of a cool story of it too. So yeah, I'll get to play in front of his family for the first time. Will Carter make an appearance? I'm going to say no.
Isn't he playing somewhere?
Yes, he's in the ECHL somewhere.
Henrique with Janmark and Brown, and then Kapanen with Podkolzin and Perry. So if you're looking at going, where's Jeff Skinner? He's once again not in the lineup. Skinner comes out. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised Kapanen is staying in. I haven't liked him the last couple of games. I don't know why his leash is so much longer, considering he's also not a true centerman. So I would have had Kapanen out, Janmark on the fourth line, and Skinner playing with Draisaitl and Savoy. But what do I know?
There is one reason why he's in, why Arvidsson's in, why Janmark's in, because they skate faster than Jeff Skinner. And I feel like that is almost the only reason.
The Oilers had called up Cam Devan yesterday on an emergency basis, but it sounds like that is going to be purely an emergency basis. Kulak and Ekholm didn't skate yesterday, but the expectation is that both of those two players and Darnell Nurse will be ready to go tonight. So Devan is here, but all the regular D-man appear to be ready to go. So big for the Oilers to get Darnell Nurse back, and obviously Calvin Pickard is getting the start between the pipes for the Anaheim Ducks. This is how they'll line up tonight. Former Oiler Ryan Strome with Frank Vetrano and Troy Terry. Leo Carlson with Trevor Zegras and Alex Killorn. Mason McTavish with Sam Colangelo. No, not former Raptors GM Brian Colangelo. Big collar brand, baby. And Cutter Gauthier on the left side. Gauthier has picked up 5 goals in his last 10 games. Isaac Lundestrom with Jansen Harkins and Ross Johnson. The fourth line is Jackson Lacombe, who is quickly coming into the conversation for one of the least known about high-end players in the NHL.
He has 6 points in his last 5 games.
Yeah, 9 points in his last 10. It's crazy.
He
is very, very good. He's going to play with Radko Gudas, Minchikov with Trouba, Dumoulin, one of the few true pending UFA defensemen on the market. He's going to be with Drew Hellas, and hey, maybe Brian Dumoulin just stays in town.
He's a good player.
I think the Oilers should aim higher for what it's worth.
I do too. But if it comes down to the final hour and they don't have one Dumoulin, someone I would take a look at, you can probably get him for a third.
Yep.
Fourth,
okay.
One thing I was just going to add.
Oh, wait, who's starting for the Ducks tonight before you add that?
I would assume Dosto because John Gibson played against Chicago on Saturday, and they lost 6-3, and he had an .870 save percentage, maybe even lower.
No starter confirmed yet, but yeah, Dostal's been handling the bulk of the work.
Because Gibson's at backup. Anyway, Brian Colangelo. Awesome pull.
Big collar brand.
Did he draft the Bargnani?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He did. I was just going to say to Cam Denny, obviously not going to be playing for the Oilers tonight. Brett Kulak is in. If Brett Kulak would have missed this game, that would have been the first time he's missed a game for the Oilers since they acquired him. He's currently on a 286 game Ironman streak. Maybe 226, something like that.
I love that, man.
Me. But great player.
Yeah, 82, and now 60 for 60 this year.
He's
I've been telling all of you.
Oh, yeah, you've been high on you. You're the Kulak guy. But
what a great addition he was for the Oilers. The fact they were able to re-sign him. Do you remember he tested free agency and no one wanted him? Or like you couldn't get a better deal anywhere? Like, man, and also too, a little bit different, but yesterday Utah signed Ollie Matter, and they also gave him a no movement clause, which I thought was very funny considering the day. It just makes me love that Brett Kulak and Brett Kulak deal way more. Like $2.75 million for another. What's he got? One more year after this. He gives you so reliable. Like I said, 25 minutes the other night when Nurse was out, and he was easily their best player against Carolina. I actually don't think it was that close. Maybe him and Pickard.
I mean, he played
Stunned you?
He played 25 minutes. Yeah, like
yeah, he was unreal.
Definitely was up there. All right, let's continue along with the show. Do we have our keys to victory for Sherwood Ford the Giant?
Not yet, but give me a moment.
Okay, we'll get our keys to victory, our game notes, I should say, for our friends over at Sherwood Ford the Giant. In the meantime, we could maybe talk a little bit of betting.
Sure. I did game notes today if you need me to.
Yeah, okay, let's do game notes. Game notes brought to you by our friends over at Oodle Noodle. I'm a Tokyo Glazed double beef guy, but find whatever you'd like at one of their 15 locations in the Edmonton area. And our friends at Oodle Noodle, they are always helping out local charities. Tokyo Glaze was the item of the month. 10% of all the proceeds go towards Sports Central. They're always teaming up with good charities, so you eat good and you feel good because you're helping out your community. That's what they're about over at Oodle Noodle. Liam, give me some game notes for tonight.
I think the big one for me is going to be the special team. So Anaheim special team since February 10th. 10% on the power play, which is 31st in the NHL. And for an Oilers penalty kill that has struggled massively. Last two games, I think, way better. Obviously, against Florida, they did have the goal disallowed, but they cheated, so rightfully so. And then against Carolina, what was it? Aho scored, but we talked about it yesterday. It's just being a really solid goal by them, and sometimes good players are going to make good plays. So I think tonight is a good opportunity for Edmonton to, one, stay out of the box more. They've been going to the box way too often, but then also to just going up against a weaker Anaheim power play that only has 2 goals as well on the power play in the last 5 games, and they both came in the same game. I believe it was against Vancouver. Their penalty kill has been clicking at around 72% as well, which was 21st in the NHL. So the Oilers power play, good opportunity for them to make a difference tonight. Leo Carlson has come back from the Four Nations break and been a real good contributor to Anaheim as well. It didn't play a lot, obviously, for Sweden. I think maybe 1 game, 2 games at the most. He has 6 points in his last 5 and has a point in all but one of those games. They most recently lost to Chicago 6-3. The Brett Kulak one was something also I had mentioned, and like we said, there's 2 players on Frank's trade board list on Anaheim, Brian Dumoulin being one, who the others could have some interest in. The other one is Trevor Zegras, and if the Oilers get him, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that would be really, really weird if the Oilers were to go make a trade for Trevor Zegras. Anyways, there you go. Some game notes for Oodle Noodle. Let's get to some more fast facts from our friends at Sherwood Ford the Giant.
The Oilers have dominated Anaheim recently, going 8-2 in their last 10 and outscoring the Ducks 50-22. Let's go Oilers!
Giant Mike here. You know who's a Duck hunter? Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid has 21 points in his last 10 games against the Ducks.
Calvin Pickard's got the Ducks number 3-1 since joining the Oilers. And 15 wins in 20 starts. Overall, yeah, he's having a pretty good time. Go Oilers!
Go Oilers indeed. Shout out to our friends at Sherwood Ford, the Giant. How about Connor McDavid? I have an article coming out later today over on the site, Oilersnation.com. You should read it. But it's about the Oilers' offensive struggles in the month of February and just how hard they fell off. And it's something we talked about last week on the show. But how about the fact that in the month of February, at 5-on-5, the Oilers got outscored 13-2 at 5v5. Like, if anyone needs to go have a big night for the Oilers tonight, start March on a high note, it's Connor McDavid.
Well, that's the other game note I missed. March is easily his best month.
Really?
207 points in 123 games for Connor McDavid in his career, which is 38 more than any other month. Like, he gets red hot in March, so he's going to be ready to go, I think. And do you know what, too? Like, and McDavid will say this as well. When these guys go on the road, they're obviously taken care of. Like, they're treated to first class. But to just come home probably felt pretty good for him. Yep. Just to be in his own bed, cook in his own kitchen, use his own bathroom, all that good stuff. You know, I do think that goes a long way. It's been a long time since he got back, and I would imagine tonight is a significant game for him. And I think that's where I'll be putting my money.
So let's talk about that for our friends at Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, or is DJ here?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I was going to say I had some Boardsy bankroll numbers as well on Connor McDavid, so that's a perfect segue.
That is a great segue. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Let's talk a little bit about our betting. I'm coming off a win. I am in positive digits on the year. I only got 22 more games to track you down and catch you. Jay, firmly in the rearview mirror, but he's the real winner because he spent the weekend in Paris.
Paris.
You don't like Paris, though.
No, but I respect people who go.
Okay.
It's something you have to experience for yourself, and then you will learn. Let me know if you've been to Paris before, and let me know your thoughts. I didn't have time to update the board. Sorry, everybody. We kind of rushed in here because the Oilers made a trade, if you didn't know. Trent Frederic to the Edmonton Oilers, but I lost my bet because I bet on the Oilers to beat Florida, and they lost. I was close. I wasn't too bad.
So tonight you're going all in on McDavid, though.
Big time. 3 points for McDavid plus 300.
All right.
That's my bet.
I looked at it and I thought about putting it into a little parlay, but I'm actually just checking down a little bit. McDavid 2 points, Oilers on the puck line, Evan Bouchard 3+ shots on goal plus 350 over on Bet365, and then we also got a bet in from Jay as he is somewhere flying in the air. I also like how when he's on vacation we get his bets at like 3 in the morning.
Yeah, it was 1 a.m. when we got this one. I was snoozing.
So where is Jay's pick? He's going, oh wow, he loaded up. Stunner. Over 4.5 goals for the Oilers. Oilers to win by 2.5 goals, and Draisaitl to score. That comes in at plus 375. So those are your picks tonight for our game day betting challenge, brought to you by Bet365.
Connor McDavid numbers, dude. 2 or more points in 10 of his last 13 games against Anaheim. And his last 15 games, he has 35 points against Anaheim.
That's not bad. Also, Leon Draisaitl is on a 11-game point streak, which is the second time he's done that this season. He has 9 goals, 7 assists.
Damn.
97.
He scored 3 goals in 2 games against the Ducks already.
Do you know his career high for point streak? 14.
Ooh, I like his chances of keeping it going tonight.
So we got Anaheim tonight, Montreal, is that Thursday or Friday?
I think traditionally he does pretty well against the Habs, too.
And then Dallas Saturday. So busy, competitive week for Edmonton.
I can see the What Chaos guys, but they're freezing and trying to join, so.
Oh, I wonder if maybe they're not opening up the link again as a monitor.
Shoot.
I don't know. I just see Sean frozen.
Poor Sean.
We'll get there.
Connor McDavid, quietly enough, is on a 4-game point streak. He's just picked up 1 assist in 4 straight games. He's due. He is so due for a big bounce back. Blake is in Henrique revenge game. He got going the other day, and that's one of the things I wrote about in my article when I talked about the Oilers offense struggling the way it did, is like there's the logic-based argument for why it will bounce back, and it's that their XGF has stayed pretty high. Their shooting percentage is still due to go on some sort of a heater, and Connor McDavid will not get dominated at 5-on-5 for an entire month the way he just did. Facts. Opinion.
Okay.
Victor Arvidsson can't be this bad all year, can he? Adam Henrique can't be this bad all year. Vasily Podkolzin eventually will realize he has to shoot the puck to score. At some point, some of these guys got to go on a hot streak, right? Like we've seen Corey Perry go on his little runs throughout the season. Like eventually guys have to get hot. If it all happens at once, pow, giddy up.
Yeah, hopefully it happens when the Oilers need it the most, which is obviously the playoff time. And these guys just need to find themselves a little bit. And Louis spoke about it yesterday. Is like these guys wear it pretty heavy when they're not playing very well, and rightfully so. Like it's difficult to live it every day like they do under the microscope, but they need to perform at the end of the day. And especially Arvidsson, like I can live with a Podkolzin not doing great for stretches
because he's given energy and he's $1 million and this and that.
Guy, but like you make $4 million and you have another year left and you have a no movement clause now somehow. You need to figure it out, and I really do hope he does, because quite frankly we have no other choice.
That is also very, very fair. Let's go to some more comments here. Sorry, I'm good to trade pods. He is I'm good trade pods. He has a no trade clause. We have so many forwards. Maybe trade for a D-man. Podkolzin does not have a no trade clause, and I wouldn't trade him because he costs $1 million. There's no reason to trade Vasily Podkolzin unless someone's giving you like legitimate value, which they're not going to give you legitimate value for him because he's not having a great season yet. I loved him early in the year, but again, at some point, just doing good things, that's not enough. And he's continued to do good things, and he forechecks hard and creates turnovers, and clearly Leon Draisaitl likes playing with him and all of that stuff. But, like, at some point you have to score. So,
yeah, I totally agree.
All right, let's get to our second guest of the day. This one's going to be brought to you by our friends at Tim Hortons Canada. Your favorite contest is back. Roll Up to Win is back at Tim Hortons, and that means you could win millions of amazing prizes with just the swipe of a thumb. Imagine turning your routine Tim's run into an unforgettable vacation with Sell-Off Vacations, a $1,000 Rakuten cash prize, or an all-new, all-electric 2025 Volkswagen ID Buzz. Even the simple joy of winning a free coffee can make anyone's day. Boy, I'd love to have that feeling. 0 for 2 so far, rolling them up on the show. You only have until March 23rd. I didn't have time to go get mine today. I'm very disappointed. Download the Tim's app today to play. Rules apply. Canada only. No purchase necessary. As we welcome our friend DJ Bean from What Chaos. And DJ, I would like to start with the fact that you guys are doing a 24-hour stream ahead of the deadline again. Why do you volunteer to do this? That seems like it's a big task.
I would say to make sure that we don't miss anything, but honestly, everything happens before the deadline. Last year, it was Adam Henrique happened before the deadline, and we did that separately. And then this year, Trent Frederic happens before the deadline, and we've already done like 400 things on it. So that's that. So we usually just end up losing our minds for 24 hours, and we play a lot of Bop It. We do some just games. We eat a lot of food, and normally we just react to the chat being very, very funny. And we invite everybody to stop by. Keep it as your second, third, fourth, fifth screen. Just be there, because when stuff goes down, we react. We do first looks at players when they get traded, which is not Photoshop. We have an easel, and we paint what they look like with their new team. There's a lot of I'm looking at the Jake Gensel Hurricanes painting that Pete did. We've got an Anthony Duclair that Sean did. I did a nice Tyler Toffoli. It's very tasteful stuff. It is nonstop action when there is no action happening.
No. What time does this start?
It starts at 5 p.m. Eastern in the United States and Canada on Thursday, and it goes until 5 p.m. Eastern in the United States and Canada on Friday.
So do neither of you sleep, or do you take turns with naps?
I don't want to call anybody out. I think one person may have lightly dozed for a teeny bit, but no, we don't sleep. And last year, on the way in, I grabbed Bop It. You know the game Bop It?
Yep.
I grabbed a Bop It from Target. So every hour, we played Bop It to make sure our faculties and our facilities were all good and sharp. We're going to do stuff that keeps us on our toes, keeps us energetic, and we have pots of coffee going, so we're not falling asleep. How can you when there's such madness happening? It's on the What Chaos YouTube. Make sure you are subscribed. We also had Frank Saravalli while we're pumping the show. We had Frank Saravalli on today as that trade was going down, so we got some really fun reactions there. It was a blast.
Well, what do you think of the trade? Obviously, you probably know a lot about Trent Frederic more than we do. Also, Max Jones is in this deal. Who's that?
No, I don't know anything about Max Jones. I none of the three of us, when it happened, knew about Max Jones. I looked up and found a picture of him. I broke that he is Caucasian, and Frank wasn't very entertained by that. But we were like, okay, so they got Max Jones. Not particularly exciting. We thought Frederic made sense for the Oilers. I know you guys thought that Frederic made sense for the Oilers, so it happens. That's good for them. He's a guy who is badly trying to revive his stock, and playing on a fourth line with Corey Perry will probably help that. So I think it's a good get for them. I think it stings that Philip Broberg has turned into a few weeks of Trent Frederic, depending on what his health situation is. That's a bit of a bummer. But good get for them. My main takeaway, and we taped something with Bob Stafford that should be on the What Chaos YouTube soon. They can't be done, because I would not have thought if they made only one move, it would have been for forward depth. I would have thought it would have been for a defenseman. Left or right side, my hope, like everybody else, is that it would be on the right side, but Bob noted, given Kulak's versatility, it could be either left or right. But them getting a forward a couple of days before the deadline tells me they think there's more they can do, because, like I said, if they were only making one move, wouldn't you think it would have been on defense?
Well, and also, if they were only making one move, they probably don't pay to get all this retention done either, right? If it's like, okay, Frederic's our big splash, you don't give up the fourth and LeChance or whatever the asset is to get the money retained down to he's $530,000 now. So I do think there's another one coming. I love Jamie Alexiak. Is there anyone out there that you look at and you're like, that's an Oiler to me?
I'm kind of stealing your take, but I would have loved if, while they were on the phone with Don Sweeney, they were like, can you go talk to Brandon Carlo, see how he would feel about spending a couple of years in Edmonton? I would love any solid defenseman who could play third pairing, but if they're playing the second pairing, you feel good about it. And that would be Carlo in Edmonton, I think. That's somebody that, given what the Oilers were just so interesting defensively last year, because in the postseason, you had Darnell Nurse really fighting it. Yet, the penalty kill was outstanding. You need to remember, if you're an Oilers fan, the penalty kill being the best penalty kill ever is not going to happen again. It's not going to happen to the Oilers this year, and it's probably not going to happen to anybody ever in the next however many years. So shoring up the defense, knowing that, yes, Darnell Nurse, if he's healthy, is so much better than he was last year, so you do get the upgrade there. I still would like that little bit of a boost next to Darnell Nurse, whoever it may be.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a lot of things, too, in the playoffs when you look back of, like, the penalty kill being so awesome. Leon Draisaitl didn't score a goal in the Stanley Cup final. Like, there's many things I think will change this time around, but the goaltending, the going with Calvin Pickard tonight. What did you make of the game in Carolina, and do you think it's the right decision for them to play Pickard tonight and give Stu a bit of a break? I don't think this is them saying, like, Stu, you've not necessarily been good enough, which probably is a little bit true, but I think it's more of like, Pickard was so good, he deserves to play.
Yeah, and I will admit I was watching the Carolina game at Ohio Stadium during the Stadium Series, and also got up in the middle of it to sneak into a suite to tape a reaction video to the Florida Panthers acquiring Seth Jones. So my undivided attention certainly was not on that game the way that it usually is. But yes, I feel good about Calvin Pickard we talked about it on the show today. Calvin Pickard, to me, is a high floor backup, which is kind of the ideal backup to Stuart Skinner, because Stuart Skinner has a lower floor and a higher ceiling. And Stu's, we've said it a million times, his highs are high, and then he just does not have a B game. When he's bad, he is get him out of there bad, usually. But I am more confident in Stuart Skinner than I think a lot of people. Goaltending is not for the faint of heart. Watching goaltending is not for the faint of heart. Watching Stu Skinner certainly is not for the faint of heart. But as we reminisce and look back on last year, one of the things that you don't know if will be repeated is, will Stu Skinner respond to the bad games the way that he did last year? Because he would have a couple of bad games and then be unbelievable for a couple of weeks. So I have faith in Stu Skinner as a number one goaltender. I really like Calvin Pickard as a high floor backup. I do not take this as a sign that Calvin Pickard is contending to take Stu Skinner's job. But if there comes a point where Calvin Pickard is playing so well that he looks like a number one goaltender and a consistent number one goaltender, I am not the type that says, hey, this guy's the better player overall, so he's got to play no matter what. If Calvin Pickard wants to come and steal the job, that's fine by me. I'm not of the mind that the Oilers should be spending what assets they have on goaltending, though. I think if a goaltending change happens, it's that Calvin Pickard plays out of his mind and steals that job. I'm not confident in that, but if it happens, I'm not saying no to it.
Connor McDavid registered one multi-point game since the beginning of February. That is not Connor McDavid-esque. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about McDavid's struggles? That this maybe isn't just a slump. Maybe it's actually a down year for McDavid.
I think that if Connor McDavid, and I'm saying this is a joke, so whatever. I think that if Connor McDavid took a matching Leon Draisaitl contract this offseason, the NHLPA would kick him out and hate him and be so mad at him. So I think that, like a good teammate, he is throwing the middle of the season to be like, hey, I didn't lead the league in points this year. Maybe I'm trending downward. I should get an 8-year. I should get 8 times 14 while it's still on the table. You know what? I'll take that. And that is my read on it, that he is being a team player and intentionally making it understandable for him to take a hometown discount. Connor McDavid, good guy. I'm not going to forget this.
Mm-hmm.
I respect it.
Accurate.
I respect it.
I could see that being something. So when you're sat there on your 24-hour stream and you've got your paintbrush in one hand and your little French hat on, what do they call those things?
A beret.
Beret. And you're waiting for a trade to come down. Who's someone you want to paint into a new NHL jersey?
Oh yeah, a little matchmaker.
That's a good question. Sean, is there anybody that we definitely want to paint as oh yeah, I mean, I will sit on anybody just because, and if there are any Penguins fans here, I love you, but just because whenever a Sidney Crosby trade is brought up, he took $8.7 million. He took $8.7 million, so his contract's more tradable. Okay? Like, at some point, maybe he will get traded. And if that happens, I want the paintbrush in hand. I don't know what team I want it to be on.
Montreal?
Vegas Golden Knights. Yes. Sid is a Vegas Golden Knight to just make the entire hockey world throw up. Although, as somebody who roots for a team in the Pacific, I don't know if I would feel amazing about it.
Yeah, you can't come on this show and say you want Sidney Crosby on the Vegas Golden Knights. That is unbelievable.
One that I do want, because I still don't really fear this team, famous last words, I think that Rantanen to the Kings would just be fun for the rest. Like, keeping the Pacific as like the real heavy hitters, the real dogs of the NHL. But let's see. Who would I wonder if I would want to. Who would I want to paint as an Oiler? I mean, you guys will hate this. I'm a Rasmus Ristolainen guy just because someone's got to be. I don't know if I actually want the Oilers to get him, but painting Risto on the Oilers would be an honor for me.
You want to paint anyone in Vancouver or Calgary jerseys while you're at it? Really throw in the dagger?
You want everyone in the Pacific to load up?
It depends on who they're getting for Rasmus Andersson and who they're getting for Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser. So as they trade away all these guys, I can paint a first-round pick in a Vancouver Canucks jersey.
Conditional first.
Before we let you go, I was told I'm allowed to softly tease this on shows. You and Pete and Sean are coming to Edmonton at the end of March. How fired up are you guys?
So fired up. You don't understand. We're coming. It's going to be the best. I'm bringing my girlfriend, who is an Oilers fan now, because she has to watch so many Oilers games. She's excited to hit the pro shop. She's excited to go to her first Oilers game. Pete is excited. Sean is like, this is going to be the best. And we've got a lot of fun stuff planned while we're in Edmonton, because only fun stuff happens in Edmonton. I've only been once. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I cannot wait.
Do you want me to pick you guys up in the Nation truck again? Or was one ride in that galloping unit enough?
I mean, I am absolutely not saying no to that. I think that we would all fit, honestly. We have quite a bit of gear, but I think we'd be able to squeeze in there. That's my favorite car, so I'm saying yes.
All right. I love it. Can't wait for you guys to come up. We're going to be doing a bunch of events at Greta with you guys, so shout out to our friends over at Greta as well.
I got a non-hockey question.
Oh, boy.
We're both movie fans. You tweeted a couple of times during the Oscars. Here's what you said. What? The other one. That is absolutely insane. I was not a big fan of this Oscars Best Picture group. I'm more of a 2024 guy. Love the Holdovers and all those other movies they had there. What did you make of the Oscars this year?
Okay, so do you know what and this is insane referred to?
I'm assuming the
Adrian Brody's speech.
I was going to say Best Picture or maybe Best Actress.
That was to Mikey Madison winning Best Actress. Yeah. And I think we all know Mikey Madison is a star, is going to be a star. I am a huge fan of Sean Baker. Love his movies. Florida Project and Red Rocket are two of my favorites in recent years. Honora, for me, was good, not great. And Mikey Madison's performance was very one note and a bit of a cartoon. So, like, we could say that we like the actor, we could say that we like the director, but that is not. This was a down year for Best Actress anyway. I thought that Demi Moore probably deserved it, but wasn't the greatest performance I've seen either. There are other years where just it's been an absolute gauntlet. This year, I think it was kind of anyone's game, but that to me is insane. That Honora cleaned up, and that Mikey Madison, who was not the best performance in that movie, Karen Karagulian, who played the main Armenian guy, was unbelievable, but he wasn't even nominated. I thought that Honora got way too much love, but I consider it a bit of a makeup call because I love Sean Baker, and he should have won more than he did for Red Rocket and the Florida Project.
I'm just glad Emilia Perez didn't win much. That's all I'll say.
Bonkers movie. Bad movie. A movie can be crazy and also just bad. So that's what that was.
DJ, appreciate your time. 3 weeks. We'll have you up in the studio. Can't wait to have you in Edmonton.
We're so pumped. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, there you go. DJ Bean from What Chaos, 24/7 stream. Go into the What Chaos YouTube. I know a bunch of you in the chat were already saying that you were watching last year and you're excited again, so giddy up. Can't wait to see what our friends at What Chaos get into this time around. Should have asked them about Severance. That's on me, but that's fine. We got a couple of things to hit on before we wrap up. A couple of events we actually want to promote, Liam. The first one is the Canadian premiere of Uke, the untold story of hockey legends. It's happening Monday, March 10th at Ford Hall in Rogers Place. The movie looks outstanding. It's archival footage and interviews. Uke delves into the captivating yet often overlooked story of over 50 NHL champions, all of Ukrainian descent. Liam.
Cool.
Johnny Busick, Ken Daneyko, Ruslan Fedotenko, The Tank Show.
Damn.
And, of course, Wayne Gretzky as well. The premiere event will be hosted by Kelly Rudy, and your tickets, $50 for rush seating, $150 for VIP. It comes with a Ukrainian-style meal and a Q&A with both Kelly and the director as well. So you can secure your tickets at ukrfolk.ca. Be a part of this unforgettable evening. Very excited to be down Monday, March 10th. Again, 6 days away, so get your tickets now.
What a great event.
Yeah.
Like, that's really cool. I'm going to try and go to that one.
Yeah, it's really neat. Well, you're marrying into a family of Ukrainian descent.
I am, and it is awesome.
It is
The
great.
food is amazing. The family gatherings are large, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
All right, let's wrap up the show with some keys to victory for our friends at Sherwood Power Sports and Marine. Their Price Thaw event is going on right now. Savings on motorcycles, boats, and ATVs. They got all the accessories that go with it as well. They're also heading out to the Edmonton Boat and Sportsman Show March 20th to 23rd. We're going to be a part of that too. Come join them, see all the latest boats and ATVs that they'll have out and for sale this season. They also have a dedicated booth for fish and tackle. So for all the fishermen watching the show, giddy up. Key to victory tonight, Oilers Ducks.
Special teams.
Special players.
Has to be the penalty kill for me. I really think if the Oilers can just win this 5-5 battle and just make special teams like on the penalty kill side not a factor, then they'll be fine. They'll win this game. That's my key to victory.
Yeah,
also, just don't play like shit.
Yeah, I just want to see them dominate. I want them to shoot 40 pucks, score 6 goals, and win this hockey game 6-1 or 6-2. Like, come on. Let's go.
They have to do that eventually, right? There's got to be a bit of a slump buster here, and tonight is a great opportunity. Obviously, Anaheim has played the Oilers very well, I would say, in both games, but the Oilers did let it slip the last time they played, and Dressel scored very late in that game, if I'm not mistaken, 3-2 final. So there you go. Thank you, Aaron. Minute and a half left. So yeah, that's what I'll say too.
Davin, no roll up today. I'm unsubscribing. So
come on, Davin.
Well, I buy my coffee on my drive into the studio. Today, as I'm pulling out of my driveway, my phone goes bzz, 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 and I look and I'm like, oh shit, they just traded for Trent Frederic. So I had to pin it into the office to get here so we could start the show at 11:30.
And we did.
And we
got
did.
it pretty quick, actually.
Another hour and a half show in the books.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's pretty smooth so far.
Yeah, not bad. Do we have what trending today? I have one topic I just want to hit on super quick. Can we, if you're a construction worker in the city or someone who's pulling trailers, can we stop hitting bridges?
Is that happening?
That happened on Sherwood Freeway today.
God damn it.
Like, that's such a pain in the ass. People wouldn't understand this unless you live on, like, the 17th Street. Oh, yeah. Here at the 17th Street area going into Sherwood Park down the White Mud. That bridge has been closed for probably 2 years. And now we just hit another one. I think it's 34th Street or 34th or whatever it is on Sherwood Freeway. Enough is enough, people. Read the bridge signs. Stop hitting our damn bridges. I want to get places efficiently and not have to go different ways. That's all I have to say on the matter.
Quit hitting bridges is Liam's.
Like, is it that hard?
It's
when
ridiculous.
was the last time you hit a bridge?
Never.
Exactly. Come on.
I drive the Nation truck.
That is tall. That's got a lift.
Yeah, it's a lifted kit,
It's
bro.
unbelievable. Let's figure this out. God, actually, I saw it today and I was a little annoyed. Back-to-back days, I've woken up to bad news. No movement clauses yesterday. Today, bridge is being hit. What is it tomorrow?
Liam says enough is enough.
Yeah, come on. See? Wise Kyle. I work on 34th. It wasn't ideal for him.
Liam for mayor. Can't. He's not a citizen.
Yeah.
I'm just saying facts.
Don't make the rules. It's just it's unfortunate circumstances, but I'm just asking. Come on, let's figure this out.
Trent Frederic.
B.
Gonna start calling him. We got to come up with a cool nickname. I know yesterday was Frederic.
Frederic.
What, like T Fizzy or something?
I don't know if that rolls off the tongue quite as well.
Kind of does. T Fizz.
Something like Wheezy F baby. There's something.
Yeah, there's something there. We'll work on that tomorrow. Frank should be on the show tomorrow. So yeah, giddy up.
What does that say? Letters of Verax? I'm a citizen of the nation. I sure am.
There you go.
Thank you everyone for watching today too. The numbers were
great numbies. Great numbies, boys.
Appreciate everyone joining in. If this happens again before the deadline,
we'll be live.
We'll be live Friday. We won't be able to jump on because Tyler's doing a trade deadline show, which was at 9 a.m. Mountain to 1 p.m. something like that.
Yes. 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. No, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. I think is 9 to 2 p.m. Mountain Time. Over on the Daily Faceoff YouTube, go subscribe to that. Last thing I want to say, nationgear.ca, flight night happening next Friday at Greta. $10 to get in. Get it at nationgear.ca. The $10 is a donation to the Ben Stelter Foundation. Gets you in the door. Flight night brought to you by Fountain Tire. We are giving away a trip for two on the Nation Vacation live in person at Greta. You come to this event. You get the drink specials. You get to watch the game with us, all that good stuff. And you could be walking out of Greta that night with the fact and knowledge that you'll be coming on the Nation Vacation. So giddy up.
For you and a friend.
You and a friend, yeah. Trip for two, deuce. Flight night, nationgear.ca. Go buy your tickets. That is a wrap on today's edition of the show. We'll chat with everybody tomorrow at noon Mountain Time. See you then.
Oil up.